firstly like to thank the All-Ireland Institute of Hospice and Palliative Care for providing us with the opportunity to develop this online programme, and to thank Michael and Karen as well for their ongoing support, and also to Gareth and to Jean-Paul for their technical assistance as well. It's been fantastic. The title of the programme is Introduction to Palliative Care, and this is the screenshot from the homepage, I suppose, of the online programme. So this developing the programme was very much a team effort. It involved myself as librarian and my colleagues Breda Trimble Maloney and Siobhan MacDonald, who are nurse tutors in Milford Care Centre. And our vision really was to create an online 2-hour module, Introduction to Palliative Care. It's designed for all levels of healthcare professionals who seek an understanding or affirmation of what is palliative care, and it acts as a guide to achieving competence requirements within a wide variety of healthcare settings. We wanted to make this online programme accessible, user-friendly, and a medium by which we could deliver the key messages regarding the delivery of high-quality palliative care to individuals. So that was our overall aim. So the aim of the programme is, as I said, is to provide health and social care professionals on the island of Ireland with an introduction to palliative care, focusing on the principles of palliative care and its application to practice. And health and social care professionals include doctors, nurses, midwives, pharmacists, healthcare assistants, social and allied healthcare professionals. So I suppose really then in guiding the development of content for this programme, it is in line with national and international guidelines and literature to support its development. And the programme has also received CPD points for accreditation purposes. So the next one is a screenshot from the online programme, and you can see we actually introduced a mascot called Pally, and the role of Pally, he's at the top of the screen, is to really to guide participants throughout the programme and to assist with navigating the programme and providing, I suppose, participants with instructions as they go through the programme. And so he appears at various points throughout the e-learning programme. So this again is another screenshot from our online programme, and this is the homepage which contains the course content. And these are the modules. It's divided into 5 modules. The first module is the principles of palliative care. The second module then deals with the applications of the palliative care principles to practice. In the third module, we deal with levels of palliative care service provision. And the fourth module deals with holistic delivery of for those with a life-limiting condition. And in the final module, we have a module on self-care, and that's really self-care for healthcare professionals who are caring for people at end of life or in palliative care. The online course, we included a variety of delivery methods to deliver the course content. These included audio, which really works with a lot of voiceover for some of the slides, graphics and text. We also had some interactive activities which were introduced throughout the programme as well. Some of those were quizzes and some were activities, and I'll show an example of one of those later. We also, I suppose, created videos specifically for the online programme, and these videos were created by staff in Milford Care Centre and consist of healthcare professionals really working in specialist palliative care, talking about the palliative care approach and their experience of it. And finally, I suppose those videos would include videos from the consultant in palliative medicine, social worker, chaplain, clinical nurse specialist, and we were also fortunate to have a clinical psychologist talk about self-care as well in one of the videos. Throughout the programme, we also included a variety of links to other online resources. In some cases there might be literature, others would be reports or videos, and websites, which some were local as well as international resources. An excellent way as well was to, I suppose, really illustrate the principles and the application of palliative care were to include case scenarios, and some of these were interactive as well, in which case people read a particular case scenario and then had to answer questions on it and were given feedback as to why their answer was correct or why it was incorrect. So there was a combination of different delivery methods that were used in the online programme. And I know that Josie earlier mentioned about the myths around palliative care, and there are a lot of myths, I suppose, around palliative care. So we decided to introduce a kind of an interactive activity, I suppose, to maybe get people to think about those myths, misconceptions about palliative care. And in this particular slide, I have two books, and one is Palliative Care Is, and the second book is Palliative Care Is Not. So in this case, people have to drag the different misconceptions. Well, is this how palliative care is? One of them is only for people with a cancer diagnosis. If they move it into the box with palliative care is, it automatically will jump out, so they have to move it into the correct box. Links to other resources. These are examples of some of the resources. So palliative care competence frameworks and the competency assessment tools, links to those are also provided in the programme. And there's a lot of other links and websites. A lot of people, actually, our feedback kind of was, we had done an internal review ourselves, I suppose, with staff, just to see what, in terms of the content, and we also sent it out to I suppose, pilot sites really to review people who were working in general settings, to get their healthcare professionals and working in general settings from a variety of different settings and different backgrounds, just to get their feedback. And they did find that actually, even for people who were working in specialist palliative care, found that the additional resources, a lot of them were actually kind of they found themselves that there was actually quite a lot of information there for them as well. So it kind of provides people, I think, with the opportunity just to come back again to the programme if they wish, and to find out more information. So this activity here is videos on grief, and it's from the Irish Hospice Foundation, and they've absolutely excellent videos, understanding grief, living with loss, suicide in the workplace. I briefly mentioned that earlier, grief and dementia. There's so many excellent resources, so we just included this one for I suppose videos just to illustrate about how to deal with grief. This is an example then. At the very end of the online programme, we have an assessment, and the assessment contains multiple choice questions. This is an example of one of the multiple choice questions, and it is: which of the following statements below is most applicable when addressing and considering holistic palliative care needs of patients and families? So again, if they tick the correct box, it's the physical, psychosocial, spiritual and bereavement needs. Again, they get feedback if their answer is correct, and if it's not correct, they can redo the quiz. At the very end of the programme, they must, if they wish to print off their certificate, they have to get 80% in the multiple choice questions. So that's a prerequisite really to accessing the certificate. In summation, really, the programme itself is aimed at all healthcare professionals, and it's aimed at professionals or healthcare workers in all settings. So regardless of setting, whether it's a nursing home or residential care, intellectual disability, hospitals, the acute sector, it's very much applicable. It also is, the aim really of the programme is to enhance people's understanding of palliative care approach, and hopefully that they'll be able to go back to their own workplaces and apply it in their own clinical, their own practice. It's a 2-hour accredited programme, and it can be used as a standalone module, although I suppose we were talking today very much about the importance as well of the blended approach, and I think that we can use that in a variety of ways. So it's online, but you can use it as you see fit in your own workplace. And again, I'd like to say thank you for listening. I think I kind of was fairly short and brief. And thank the All Ireland Institute of Hospice and Palliative Care for the support and for actually giving us that opportunity to develop this programme. I'd also like just to thank the Milford Care Centre clients and staff who gave up their time throughout the programme in terms of, I suppose, developing giving us feedback on the content. They were involved in, I suppose, their expertise in giving us their expertise in videos. All pilot sites as well across the island of Ireland, north and south. We did get feedback from people, and I have to say, I know that Josie mentioned about that continuous cycle, and I think with maybe e-learning programmes, I wonder if you really are ever finished, because when to lock it in, you never really are quite happy with what you've done. So I think it's kind of an ongoing learning curve, because every time you do something, you see something better somewhere else, or you start to notice that isn't quite right, or it's not. I'd also like to thank Dr. Karen Ryan from the Palliative Care Competencies Framework Steering Group, and to Matt Kelly Productions, who were involved in producing our videos. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to take them as well, or if you want to send me an email later. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be involved in this e-learning programme. It was a huge learning curve, is one of the things I would say about it. Very, very positive. Thanks to the All Ireland Institute for funding, and also thank them very much for giving us a software licence and the articulate storyline to be able to actually do the online e-learning programme. The e-learning programme was developed by two organisations. I think we're different from all the others that developed the programme. It was Marymount University Hospital in Cork and also Milford Care Centre. So two organisations working together to develop this e-learning programme. And we are working together since 2011 on formal family meetings. Now, the e-learning programme did not take from 2011. It probably took about 4 or 5 months to develop, and the group you see here were the group that were involved in developing it. We had clinical nurse manager, we had social worker involved, we had Joanne, librarian from Milford, and we had people from education involved in the developing of the programme. Just to put our programme in, the e-learning programme in context, back in 2011, both Milford and Marymount undertook a retrospective audit in their own areas of formal family meetings in relation to the documentation. And one of the things that they found in that was, for example, in the recording of who attended the meeting, maybe some of the staff that attended weren't actually recorded, or a family's visitor or family member might be in there, but we didn't know whether it was, their son or that. So it was looking at the documentation and to try and improve documentation. Also, a staff survey was undertaken in both sites, and this staff survey found, while they were both in specialist palliative care units, that only 20% of staff in these units were actually very confident about formal family meetings. And when they looked then as well at the staff survey, from that they looked at what could be done to improve how formal family meetings were being delivered. One of the aspects that came up was to develop a form for recording formal family meetings, which was a specific pro forma where there were certain questions asked and you had to include who attended the meeting. To develop an information leaflet for families, because sometimes in the clinical area, when families are invited to formal family meetings, some of them get kind of, what is all this about? So an information leaflet developed. The third aspect was written guidelines for staff on formal family meetings, and the fourth part of it was to develop a communication skills training for staff on formal family meetings. So there was a workshop, an interactive workshop or face-to-face workshop developed where actors were brought in, and that was piloted and evaluated. But what was found in the evaluation was that we tried to do too much in a 3-hour workshop. So too much was trying to put into developing the education. So looking at that, we were then deciding to develop a blended learning approach. So to do the theory part of it through e-learning, and then to move on to actually develop workshops. So ours will consist of 2 parts, the e-learning programme, which now will be online, but also then we're in the process of developing it further into a workshop for contact face-to-face. And the other part, when we were developing the e-learning, we looked then at doing an action research project where there would be 3 cycles. The first cycle would be that we would establish the learning needs of specialist palliative care healthcare professionals on formal family meetings. And how we did that was we undertook focus groups in the 2 hospices, and we used purposeful sampling, tape recorded, did thematic analysis using Bernard's thematic analysis, and identified a number of themes. And these then were taken into our e-learning program. We're now at cycle 2, which was developing the structure, content, and now the delivery of the program. And as I said, we're only at stage 1 of that, and we hope then to go on further into stage 2 and then on to stage 3 of the action research. But in cycle 2, we reviewed, as Joanne was saying previously, we went back and we looked at the literature that was out there on formal family meetings. We looked at the learning needs of people working in specialist palliative care. What were their learning needs around e-learning programs or around formal family meetings? And one of the things we were finding as well is people were fairly confident during the week when there were a number of staff around, but it was at the weekend when numbers were reduced and maybe social workers weren't there or medics weren't available at a certain time that people were concerned about it and didn't feel as confident. We developed the programme and now hopefully making it available for access. So this is the title slide that people will see when they log on. And it really is to develop people's knowledge on communication and formal family meetings and their use in palliative care. And while we're saying it's for use in palliative care, it can be taken into community hospitals for use in general palliative care as well for people undertaking formal family meetings. There are 6 sections. We're reckoning it'll take about 4 hours to complete the programme. So we have 6 sections involved in the content. And the first section is on the principles of communication in palliative care. And with all of them, the learner clicks on the learning outcomes and it brings up the learning outcomes. So section 1 will look at the benefits of good communication, but it will also look at the impact of poor communication on patients and families, the elements that contribute to good communication, the skills involved in active listening, and the steps involved in a structured approach to communication. And for example, a number of slides are interactive. For example, you click on element 1 and a little bit more information comes up around that area on the elements of good communication. Or you click again and just it gives you further information. So it's interactive on quite a number of the slides. We also have voiceovers, and with the voiceovers we used actors to do the voiceovers for the e-learning project. Section 2 then goes on again to look at an overview of palliative care and an overview of families. And obviously you're all very familiar with the palliative care definition. Then they can click on the WHO definition, which brings them then into the World Health Organization definition of palliative care. Then we look at family, what is defined by family, and the family being whoever the patient says it is, and can include people, blood relatives, neighbours, or other significant relationships. So it looks at family, and it also looks at the theory of family as a system, where in the family system, if one person is affected, it has a knock-on effect. So it's like a mobile. That mobile is supposed to move. It's not moving, but it's supposed to move. So if you click on something, that it affects the rest of the family. Again, that section as well also brings in the concept of total pain, and again, clicking on each of the boxes explains a little bit more about this concept of total pain. Then we move on to section 3, which defines what a formal family meeting is, the rationale for family meetings and the advantages. We found when we were doing the focus groups, and again in the literature, not all families are suitable, or people within a family may not be formal family meeting may not be appropriate in some families. So we look at the indication, but the possible contraindications as well for formal family meetings. And then we look at the steps involved. How do you go about actually organising a formal family meeting? Each section then ends with a summary slide about the section itself. So then in the section 4, 5 and 6 then are down to the nuts and bolts of a formal family meeting. So pre-meeting planning, the team meet before they go to meet with the family. So the different steps, discussing why the family meeting is required, the process involved, somebody allocated to go talk to the patient, asking for their permission to have a formal family meeting, asking the patient if they would like to attend the formal family meeting, and then contacting the family to set up the family meeting. So getting verbal consent from the patient. And does the patient want to attend some of it, or do they want to attend none, or do they want to attend all of the formal family meeting? Or condition may be deteriorating and they may not be able to attend. So just go through the different steps involved prior to the meeting and the practical arrangements. Where are you going to have the meeting? Do we have a sign outside that says, do not disturb, etc.? And who is going to attend? Which of the team are actually going to attend? So section 5 then is the actual meeting itself, where there is a specific structure as well, and it goes through the different stages, and then you have a little video clip as well. And one of the parts in the formal family meeting is you try to get the family's perception of what is going on. So we see formal family meetings as part of patient care planning. So we have the pre-meeting, the meeting itself, and then a post-meeting. I hope this works. This is a little DVD or a little video piece. And in the video piece, you have 3 staff, 2 from Marymount and 1 from Milford, and you have 2 amateur actresses, and you have somebody on the video or on the computer, which is supposed to be Skyping into the meeting.
Okay, we're all here, as I said, with regards to Tom, and what I'd like to do, as I said, is just check out with you just how you found him, as I said, prior to his admission, and how you think he's been over the last week since he's come into us.
Yeah, well, he did very well for a lot of the year now, since it all began. And then, of course, in the last month or so, he knew, and we knew, that he'd have to get some more or different medication. I don't think it was suiting him all that well. And he came in then last week, and, I kind of thought that if there was a balance in the medication, it would give him maybe a bit more energy or something like that. But actually, he's got worse, and I'm just wondering, would he have been better left at home? He has a pump now as well, and I don't quite understand what that is.
Yeah, I suppose, like I agree with Ma'am. From my point of view, it's like Dad has just gotten worse. Since he came in. He's really deteriorated. Like, I can't get over the difference in him. And John, I know you were talking to him and you found the same, didn't you?
Yeah, I was, because I'm shocked to see her, because I know we went in and I was hoping, that they'd help him get better, but I was talking to him on Monday night, and he wasn't himself at all. He just seemed really out of it and confused, and just sounded really frail, and it was sort of frightening, because I just like a week ago, anytime I was chatting to him, he was fine, he just didn't seem himself.
No. And I suppose we've seen that, John, as well, when he came in, and one of his main concerns that he wanted to, increase his energy levels, but we haven't seen that happening over the week, really. He's needing more help with the nurses to get in out of bed, and even actually now, yesterday, when asked would he sit out of bed, he really didn't want to. It was the first time he wanted to actually stay in bed. Having a little bit of trouble finding his words, a little bit forgetful. So we've been seeing the changes as well, really, since he's come in. And I wondered, did you find that, Bernie, at home with him?
We did. The thing was, Mary would come in the evenings, and in the evenings, that's his best time. And you probably saw him, Lovey, a bit more cheerful or more alert. He always sleeps a lot in the morning, and he'd come down then. Okay, and just before he came in, he wasn't that good at it. But when you came to see him, he was at his best. He's mad about you. He'd make the extra effort, and it was good that he did it even. I think I think he's got depressed as well. That's
Yeah.
part of it. And I don't know if this is the medication or if it's not. When he was there with the grandchildren, when your kids came,
Yeah.
he loves every minute of it. But it's not. He can't manage that now.
No, God, no.
anymore.
Like,
Sure,
I
he
wouldn't
can't,
dream
no.
of bringing them in. I just know he wouldn't be able for them, like, you know, he just,
and
his
he's
energy
mad
has just
about
gone
them,
way
you know.
down.
He is so
Yeah.
mad about them.
Yeah.
But he's just too tired and too weary. And that's it, really, isn't it?
So I hear you, Bernadette, asking about, some questions around the medication, and he's tiredness, sort of fatigue that he's experiencing at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm just going to check in with you, John, if you don't mind. Just again, how long has it been since you have met your dad?
Well, I haven't been able to get back now for maybe like two months. So,
Okay.
and I know it's serious and all the rest, but he seemed to be doing well. But obviously this this isn't good, because he just yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's really clear, isn't it, kind of way, as I said, that you have some concerns, as I said, at this stage. Is there anything else that you think you would want us to be aware of today, or something else that you might want to bring to our attention?
I just wanted to ask, like, he seems really jaundiced just this week, in the past couple of days, and I know he had that months ago, but it seemed to have resolved itself, and I'm just wondering, is it back again now, and is that causing him to just go backwards a bit, and is there anything we can do about it? I know I was saying that to you the other night, John. I could really notice it in him. Yeah.
Okay, so I suppose there's a few things, isn't there, really, that we need to kind of address here today, hopefully for you, as I said. And one will be around the medication, kind of way, as I said, like the jaundice, and again, like that, his fatigue and the deterioration that you've noticed for him. And these are all things that hopefully we're going to cover, as I said, throughout the meeting today.
Okay. Yeah.
Then the last part of it is about having the post-family, debriefing for the staff, and then the action that's followed up after a formal family meeting. Each section ends with a quiz. The quizzes could be something like just true or false, people clicking on, or they may be drag and drop into the correct place. And then again, each section is followed by references if people wish to go and read further in relation to the programme. So thank you very much.
Okay, everyone, just want to share with you, just like the others, the development of this online learning in collaboration with the All Ireland Institute, and ours is Introduction to Palliative Dementia Care, and just really a very brief background of a journey that we went through going back to 2009 was to develop e-learning within hospice. Now that has been quite a challenge for us over the years. Thankfully, I think we've got better at that, and we've appointed a new e-learning officer who's with us now, almost a year, I think. So it was nice to have Nuala on board to help with this, because when we're developing the online or e-learning session, it can be very time consuming, as others have already referred to. So the reason I chose just two very short reports to few seconds really to talk about is the whole importance of having this session, that it's Irelandised, so to speak, that it is applicable across the island of Ireland. So when we look at the different, for example, the legal issues and ethics and so forth, we have ensured that we have covered both from a Northern Irish and Southern Irish perspective for that. So why dementia? We might ask, well, we all know that it is one of those emerging challenges that's coming in front of us, there is no doubt. The current service provision will not be enough, and health and social care will have to change in order to cope with new demands. And for the purpose of this short presentation, I looked at the Dementia UK from the Alzheimer's Society 2014, and alongside the future of dementia care in Ireland in 2012. And not surprisingly, 850,000 people with dementia in the UK. and again another huge number in the Republic of Ireland, and again those numbers are increasing as we move along. From this particular report, Dementia UK, the Alzheimer's Society identified 7 key urgent priorities to be addressed, and there were 7 of those. No doubt one was funding, one was recognition, one was for the carers and the recognition of the carers and what they do, and one, most importantly, was to improve dementia care skills across health and social care, and there is a need out there for it. So, and I quite like this, and as I say, this came from Future Dementia Care in Ireland, and where it talks about the whole pace of the change has been breathtaking. This whole idea that dementia has came to the forefront. It is at the very centre of the arenas of research, policy, service and so forth. But again, going back to e-learning, it's just one method of teaching, training, whatever, in order to facilitate some of those new skills and knowledge that is needed. And this is it. Now, this is all very brief, folks. I appreciate with limited time, but this is really our session itself. As you'll see down on the left-hand side of the screen, it very much gives you the menu, and we can work our way through that. What the introduction to it, what palliative care is, the course navigation, the course introduction. This particular session can take up to 2 hours to complete. Now 2 hours is a long time, there's no doubt, but it's very much going in and doing a bit and stepping back, going in and stepping back. Doesn't all have to be completed at once by any means. And one of the things that we have learned over the journey of moving into doing e-learning within hospice, all our mandatory training is online, along with a lot of other in-service training and so forth. And one of the things which others have alluded to is it needs to be interactive, it needs to be interesting. We need to grab the audience, we need to hold them. You get bored and you're pressing a button and you're moving on, and if you drag and drop and it's not right and you have to go back and drag and drop again, it can become a bit of a pain and people can get bored very easily. So it's the whole importance of keeping the folk engaged, keeping it interactive and trying to prevent that boredom. And hence, of course, the whole need to keep going back and reviewing our sessions and so forth. The whole purpose, I should say, when we started out on this was, of course, who's this for? What is it we're doing here? And really the main purpose, in very simple terms, was to provide information on palliative dementia care to busy healthcare practitioners. And that was really it in a nutshell. And we kind of thought, well, what is it we want? What is the aim? To come away with a bit of knowledge, some increased knowledge, hopefully, and understanding of what palliative dementia care is. And how they do that, if they wish to go in and visit it once, twice, keep them back or so forth, it's entirely up to them. So when we think, well, what do you want to know about what is palliative dementia care? We have recently developed a distant learning certificate, and so a lot of work has been going on in the background with ourselves in the department in developing the certificate. So a lot of this information we had already, obviously, and had based a lot of this on our certificate. So definition of what is dementia, what is palliative care, assessment, what is a holistic assessment, how do you carry out a holistic assessment in someone with cognitive impairment, what about the behavioural issues that can occur, the ethical issues, capacity, Mental Capacity Act, what's happening in the Republic of Ireland as opposed to Northern Ireland, what about the capacity bill, and again trying very much to focus it on the All-Ireland perspective, or the All-Ireland perspective I should say. Throughout we have tried to make it as interactive as possible, to give that enjoyment. We have focused it on a case study, well not so much a case study, we kind of talk about Judith and her family. Now we don't have time, so I'm not actually going to, I was planning to go in and show and do some of the e-learning, but I'll not bother. And of course you would click on Judith and a little pop-up box and the voice over the narration throughout and it'll say, hi, I'm Judith and this is what's wrong and who I am. And then you'll have the son, Trevor comes in and so forth. And interesting, you may recognise some of the voices because we did use colleagues and work, some of our hospice nurse specialist guys, so you might recognise Pat Comey or you might recognise Anne Morrison or something, but it actually it's worked out very well. So, and one thing we did learn when starting out on the journey for e-learning was the importance of knowledge checks. Small bits of information, give it a little burst, stop, think about it, and ask a question. Not, or a piece of reflection, not to leave it to an hour later before asking the individual who's completing e-learning a question or so forth. Short bursts, and also the importance, if we follow some kind of a story or some kind of case-based scenario, it helps or adds that motivation to want to move along to see what's happened to Judith, or as opposed to try and avoid that boredom which can happen. And again, as has been mentioned, you know, Anne had said it also, e-learning's not for everyone. There's most certainly needed for blended approaches and so forth, but the whole idea with ourselves was to get this most certainly as interactive and as enjoyable and as knowledgeable as possible. And again, just different interactions throughout. This is a case where you kind of join up the blocks. Okay, so we've asked a question, match the different stages of diagnosis by dragging the description to the correct stages. So of course you would join those blocks. If you don't get it right, it'll tell you it's not right. Try it again, go back and do it, and if it's not right, it will then highlight what the correct answer is. Again, what is dementia? And as you can see there, we have gone down the side memory impairments, severity of condition, and progressive. And if you click on each of those, it will then give further information about those. The same as the others that mentioned, throughout is embedded links and resources to different sites and different videos. This is actually 2 hours long, so you can imagine there's a whole wealth of information and resources there. We felt, again, going back over the years, we feel it's really important for reflection, and before diving in to give that information or to say what dementia is, to ask the individual, what is your thoughts? You know, what do you think dementia is? Think it over, write down your thoughts, and then it'll bring us to the next slide, which will actually give what dementia is, and they can do that comparison with our answer as to what it is being stated as. But, sorry, just one other thing I wanted to say before I finish is assessment. Like the others, at the end of this session, a 2-hour session, you will then have an assessment. You will do the assessment, and it's a 70% pass mark. It's a lot of multiple choice questions, nothing surprising, it's all based on the information that is in the session. And once you complete the assessment, it's a 70% pass. If you don't pass, you can then have a second attempt. If you don't pass, then that will actually highlight the areas where you've gone wrong and you need to go back and read over or go over again. And following that, you then print off a certificate. So that's pretty much it. That was a flying through, but hopefully that's all right. Okay, well, thank you.
Thanks very much, Michael. If you think Sue was flying, I'll actually become super flying and super express. I just want to thank the All Ireland Institute for the opportunity to develop this programme, and also my colleague, Barbara Sweeney at St Francis Hospice. When we started on this innovation, we developed our mantra. And our mantra was, what do we want the audience to learn as a result of doing this unit of study? And Barbara and I, we keep saying that, what do we want the participants to learn? We also have to remember that learning needs to be interactive. So in other words, the learning, if actually we're keeping this very, very simple. And then we have to say, who's our target audience? And because we're working in specialist palliative care, we had to keep this in mind, you know, what audience are we attempting to target for this? So this is what we're doing. So we asked ourselves what it is that we're doing. So for each of this, we're looking at 4 or 5 very simple things. What it is, how does it look, or what does it look like? Who gets it? Why do people get it? And what can be done about it? In other words, how can it be managed? So it's answering those very, very simple questions. As you're going through the programme, there will be a number of questions. but also you'll actually have an opportunity to test your own knowledge. But in order to do that, you're going to be engaging in a few very, what we would call very simple and very straightforward activities. This is where the aha phenomenon begins to drop. This is why the person is presenting like this, purely because this is what the condition is about. We've developed what I call some of our lovely nuggets, where you can actually focus in on, for example, exploring the systems. So again, you will identify what are those aha phenomenons related to the symptom, so you can identify how the condition is actually managed. There will also be an opportunity for you to engage in some reflective activity, where you're going to meet different characters. So for example, you will have an opportunity to meet Elsie. I suppose this is where we were challenged. How are we going to find an Elsie? And what is going to be the copyright issues? So we purchased a license so that we wouldn't run into difficulties in terms of copyrighted material. Very simple, very straightforward. But the beauty of this activity and a number of the other activities, it gets the participants to think. One of the key messages that has come across all day is keep this interactive, keep people engaged in it. In other words, about testing your knowledge, there will be an opportunity to engage in multiple choice questions and also to engage further in reflective activities. We have dragged and we have dropped. We have linked and we have connected to YouTube. We have gone down a number of cul-de-sacs and we have also gotten a number of roundabouts. I suppose at times we have called on YouTube to get us out of difficult situations. And I guess we're still going as part of this journey. And we thought, yes, those participants also need to interact in a bit of a YouTube, so they can also connect into it. They will hear voices. But again, we're very conscious. We don't want too many voices coming on all of the time. It will be ready by the 1st of June, I promise. It will be launched by then. The cost, this is another thing. And I discussed this with in my recent visit to Australia, with Dexler Australia. And we're very conscious. We want to keep this so that people can afford this program. So it's 4 short, simple, to the point sessions, keeping it €20, each session maximum of 15 minutes. We are noted about keeping on time, so we will start and we will finish it on time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm presenting on behalf of Our Lady's Hospice and Care Services, the education team who developed this course, obviously with the support of the All Ireland Institute, for which we're very grateful. In terms of this presentation, we've definitely adopted a less is more approach, you'll be glad to hear, so you will be out by 4:30. Informed by key documents, this 2-hour course provides an introduction to the delivery of holistic and evidence-based pain assessment and management in the older person using a palliative care approach. The course has been developed using the Articulate software that you've heard about quite often today, and it's composed of 3 main sections with a total of 40 content layered slides. So in section 1, and this is actually the Articulate Live, so I've given an abridged course so that you can see some of the content live. So section 1 focuses on palliative care and the older person. So as you can see, we go through various sections about defining palliative care, your brief overviews to things like the domains of palliative care, the palliative care levels, bringing that to palliative care in the older person. One thing I wanted to highlight here was that we've added very clear instructions to people. They can't go past the slide until they've actually seen everything. And things like, click here. What we find is when people were previewing it, they were saying, oh, you can't move past this slide. Well, you can't because you haven't looked at all the content. So just to give you an example of some of the information. So as I say, each of these slides has layers to it. And as you hover over, you get more information as well. So it's to try and keep the information nice and interactive. So in terms of the second section then, it moves on to assessing pain. So we're looking at what pain is, pain in the perspective of palliative care, the assessment tools that are used, and the common challenges. In terms of section 3, then we're on to looking at managing pain. So looking at pharmacodynamics in older people, the WHO approach to pain management, analgesic choices, non-pharmacological support. So these slides are the kind of first slides of each of the section, and then it goes on to further slides that build on this content. As well as full references for each of these sections, we also have a useful linked section which leads learners to further information that they can access just at a click. So just by clicking on any of these, it opens up a new web page where people can get direct access to other information. The course has interactive content throughout, and through this we feel that we're encouraging learners to regularly reflect and assess their understanding with instantly available feedback. So for instance, in this multiple choice, you need to check, think about the answer and have a go. So in this case, I'm deliberately checking the wrong one. I'll say so. It's going to say to me, you haven't got it right, have another go. So once you get the right answer, you get the thumbs up and you can move on to the next slide. Okay. Where appropriate, we've also used the Articulate Zoom function. This allows the learner to focus in on key areas of relevant slides. So once they have read the information, it then zooms in so that you can focus on some information that maybe isn't so easy to see on the larger slide. So this is another really useful function of Articulate. At the end of every section, we've got a summary. So again, it's about the learners regularly reflecting on the content that they have just seen, and to get them then to think about what's coming next. The completion of each section automatically leads the learners back to the main menu again. So again, people can come in and out of the e-learning. They don't have to do the 2 hours all in one time. Early in the course, we introduced Josie, who is being assessed and treated for pain arising from advanced breast cancer. And again, learners are encouraged to reflect on how this diagnosis impacts on all aspects of Josie's life and how her pain can best be assessed and managed. This slide represents her case notes. So again, if you click along the top, you get information just as you would in a set of case notes, and that builds up your picture. In this particular slide, so we introduced the case notes early on and then come back to the case notes later where there's some more information where you're getting, again, the learners to reflect on specific issues around some of the medications that this lady is on. And again, it's just through hovering over information, there's a bit more information, so it's all about the interactivity. We've also got some audio content interspersed throughout the course as well. And this is Josie's voice. And for this, we actually use one of our volunteers at Our Lady's Hospice, who was absolutely fabulous. And hopefully this is going to play.
My pain is getting worse despite taking the paracetamol. They tried giving me codeine, but that didn't help much either. Now they're talking about morphine. Morphine? I don't want to be drugged up to my eyeballs and become addicted. I remember when Frank died, he was on morphine.
Josie, we understand your fears. And if you want to hear any more from that particular healthcare professional, you're going to have to subscribe to our course. So that really has given you a very, very quick overview to the content. As I say, we've used Articulate Storyline. We had a huge amount of support, and I'd like to thank John Paul, Gareth, Karen for being so giving of their time to us as well for this. It's been a massive learning curve for me in terms of using this software, but the information that we have, we can now utilise for further courses, so it's been very, very worthwhile. And that's all from me. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks very much for the honour of doing this. 20 years ago, so 1995, we opened up what we thought at the time was the very first palliative care website. And there's been some discussion about whether it was ourselves that opened up the first one at www.palliative.org in Edmonton or whether it was Dundee. But it was 20 years ago, and we said at the time that this could be a medium for education and for helping with education. And at the time when we were trying to publish a paper, we got someone saying, a reviewer saying, this will never work. I wish I had that person's name because I could send them back an email saying, I told you so. It's fantastic work we've been seeing here. And what we've seen, I think this is very important, is we've gone from, I think, 10 or 15 years ago with e-learning from fashion to pragmatism and from blind adoption to thoughtful application. Because I think 10 or 15 years ago we were saying this is a fantastic medium, etc., and now it's saying, well, let's just use this judiciously. There's a place and a time for everything. And let's choose the right tool for the right purpose for the specific job at hand. And today we've heard wonderful and seen wonderful examples of that. And the programs that are being presented are, I think, fantastic examples of that. So it gives me great pleasure to take the virtual scissors and cut the virtual ribbon, to pop the virtual champagne bottle and spray the virtual cloud and officially launch this and congratulate you all on a fantastic, fantastic job. Well done, well done.